So you have collection accounts on your credit report and you're about to go and pay all of them off. Or you have already paid all of them off and you haven't seen the effects on your credit report yet. We're going to talk about why you would want to stop right now if you were about to pay them off. And we're also going to talk about what you're probably going to see once that change actually hits your credit report coming up. If you don't know me, I'm Will Frazier, your credit expert, bringing you the tips you need to get your credit back on track, because what goes down must come up. And if you want your credit score to drop 200 points, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified of any new videos I drop just like this. Now, as mentioned, today we're going to be talking about collection accounts and paying collection accounts. But before we get started with that, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm currently having a sale. So if you guys are interested, you can click the consultation link down at the bottom. Currently, it's 50% off to enroll in the program, plus no payments until 2022. So if you're trying to jump on that, I have about less than 18 spaces left. I started off with 50 and it's only about 18 left now. So if you're interested in that and you need some help with your collections, make sure you sign up for a consultation below. Now, let's go ahead and jump into what you are here for today. So basically, I just wanted to start off first by telling you guys the main thing that you need to know about paying your collections. And that is, it will drop your credit score. It will. Or absolutely nothing will happen to your credit score, but it definitely will not go up at all. So if you have ever known anyone that has possibly paid off their collections, you should ask them. And as a matter of fact, if any of you have paid any collections on your credit report before and have seen the effects that it has on your credit score, I want you to comment down in the comments below to let other people know what it is that they would see if they were to try to do the same thing, so you don't have to just believe my word for it. But yes, anytime you pay collections, which you in your mind are probably thinking, hey, I'm doing a good thing, I'm doing a positive thing, why would this negatively affect my credit score? There are reasons for that, but I wanted to start off by letting you know what will happen if you try to do that, so that you can try to at least try a different route before you go down that route, to make sure that you do it the right way and that you don't end up hurting yourself and shooting yourself in the foot, especially if you have some type of goal that you're trying to achieve with your credit, getting a house, getting a new car, getting approved for a job, whatever it might be. I'm just trying to make sure that you start off on the right track, and you need to know that first. And also, just so you know, if a new collection company were to hit your credit report, that collection company is going to have the max impact that it's going to have on your credit score immediately as soon as it hits your credit report. So if you know something is about to be reported, or something is, just about to hit your credit report, then you will actually see the greatest effect happen at that time when it hits your credit report. Other than that, every month after that, it is hurting your credit score to the maximum ability that it can, because of certain dates that are constantly updated by the collection company on your credit report. And I said that to say, as long as a collection account is sitting on your credit report, it is affecting your score, and it is affecting it to the maximum ability that it can affect it until it's not there anymore. Now, to clear something up as far as what a collection is, some people I've seen use the word collection and charge-off synonymously as if they are the same thing. But I just want to clarify that they are not the same thing. If you look at your credit report and you see the original creditor on your credit report and it's showing negative information like late payments, past due balances, and stuff like that, that is a charge-off because it is still showing the original creditor. If you're seeing something with a third-party company that you may have never heard of before, or that you know that you never did business with before, that is a collection company trying to collect that debt. Now we're going to talk about the difference between a debt buyer and a debt collection company, because they obtain debts in two different ways and they operate in two different ways. So it's important that you know the difference between them to kind of understand what it is that you're dealing with and what it is that their, initial goal is. But before we get there, let me just quickly outline, how a collection account comes to be, so that you can understand what I'm going to say about a debt buyer and a debt collection company in a few minutes. So when you have an account with, let's say, Chase Bank, you have a credit card with them, you're paying it on time and whatnot, and then all of a sudden, a pandemic happens, you're unable to make payments, and then all of a sudden you get one 30-day late payment, 2, 3, 4, and then you get to the point eventually where you haven't paid that account for maybe 4 months or 6 months, and then they decide to close that account. Well, now that account just became a charge off on your credit report. So now that is how it is affecting your credit score negatively because of the late payments and because it's closed and because of the past due balance that is reported on that charge off account. Well, now at this point, the company has some options on what they want to do. Of course, they want to get the money from you. That's the ultimate goal. But it's a matter of how do they want to go about trying to get that money or to be compensated for this account that you owe money on that you haven't paid them yet. Now, what Chase could do is try to collect the money from you themselves. And usually while you were late before they closed the account, they did keep calling you, trying to get you to make payments and whatnot. And it may be sometime after the account is closed, more recently after it's closed, that they may be trying to still reach out to you to get you to make payments. But at some point, they're going to get to the point where it's not profitable for them to keep trying to call you and keep trying to reach out to you to try to collect that money from you. So at that point, they're going to hire somebody, and they're either going to hire a debt buyer or they're going to hire a debt collection company. Now, this is what the difference is. With a debt collection company, which is what most people are used to, it is a company that was hired by Chase to try to collect the money from you for a small fee. So basically, if they are able to collect that money from you, Chase is going to give them a small piece of it, but they're going to get the majority of the money that you owed. And that's how that agreement usually works. Now, when it comes down to the debt buyer, what they do is if the company Chase decides that, we don't want to really deal with this anymore, we're just going to charge this off and then we're going to write it off. And then we're going to accept a certain amount of money from this debt buyer who goes around buying debts from other companies. And sometimes they're buying a portfolio of debt. So if they have a bunch of customers that haven't paid them, the debt buyer might come and buy a whole caseload of people that need to be collected on. And then the creditor, Chase, receives money and then they write it off on their end and then they no longer have to deal with it. Now the debt buyer actually owns this debt. And now one thing that's important here, when a debt buyer comes to buy a debt, they're really not paying a lot of money for that debt at all. Like usually they're paying about 4 cents on the dollar. So if you owe like $100, they might have paid literally $4 for that $100 debt that you owe. If you owe $1,000 in a collection, then they might pay $40 for that collection. So that means they are really paying next to nothing for this debt. And then after that, they're trying to collect the full amount from you after they have paid hardly anything for it. And the creditor has received the money that they have accepted to, get that debt off of their hands. But that is how the debt buyers usually are obtaining the debt. Now, also, some debt buyers will hire debt collection companies, to come and try to collect on those debts that they purchased. And then again, they're still making a big profit because the collection agency is only going to get a small percentage of that large amount that they're trying to collect from you. So hopefully you're still following me with that, but that is usually what happens in regards to what happens after your debt is charged off with the original creditor and who has your debt. And that determines, how things can go and how they reach out to you based on who it is that is trying to collect the debt. Now, one thing that's going to be very important for you to know is how long can this collection account stay on your credit report. Now, I know most people might look at it like, hey, I opened up this Chase account it's 7 years ago. So that means that it should be, off of my credit report now, or it should be about to drop off because, I got this account 7 years ago or close to 7 years ago. So I know that it's about time for this to be taken off my credit report. But the thing that most people aren't aware of is the fact that it doesn't start, the timer as far as the 7 years does not start with the date that you open the account. It starts with the first date of delinquency. And that means the first late payment that you had with that company, that first late payment starts the clock for the 7 years on that debt. As far as how long it can be reported on your credit report, that has nothing to do with the statute of limitations, which is how long they can sue you, but that determines how long it can stay on your credit report. So you would have to go back and look and see what was the first date that you were actually late on that account. And it has to be the late payment that led to the charge off. So if you were late for like 2 months or 3 months and they still hadn't closed off the account, you got current and then, it never charged off, that doesn't count. That string of late payments doesn't count. The late payment that led, from 30 days to 180 days, that is going to be the one that usually led to the charge off. But the first late payment that led to the account charging off is when the 7 years starts. So usually that gives them a lot more time than what a person is thinking that they have for it to be reported on their credit report. So in most instances, you might end up having to, deal with this account on your credit report for longer than you may have been expecting. Now, I mentioned statute of limitations. With the statute of limitations, this is important to know because it is different by every state and it is different by the different types of debt, like a credit card versus a loan. And it's worded differently when you look at the actual law, but you want to be paying attention to what type of time frame you have in your state that you can actually be sued for this debt. In most states, I'm going to say it's around 6 years. It can really vary from state to state very differently, but I would say most debts in most states, maybe about 6 years is the statute of limitations. So if the account is within the statute of limitations, then that means that this collection company still has the ability to come for you and try to sue you and get a judgment against you. Not that all of them will do so, but they do have the ability to do so because they're still within the statute of limitation. Now, according to the study that the FTC did, about 28% of these collection accounts that are out there are 6 years old or more. And even with that being said, a lot of these collection companies will still try to collect this money from you because they know that you aren't paying attention to what the statute of limitations is, and they assume that you don't even know what it is anyway. So they are just going to try to come after you for the debt, even though they may know that it's old and outside of the statute of limitation. And some of them still have the audacity to try to sue you, knowing that the debt is beyond the statute of limitations as well. Now, when it comes down to this, being sued for collections that are beyond the statute of limitations, what usually happens in those situations, you receive the paperwork, you never show up for court. According to the FTC, 90% of people who get sued for these types of debts, they are actually not showing up to the courtroom, and basically the collection company gets awarded a default judgment, which means that they are awarded a judgment and they are given the right to try to pursue you, come into your bank account, garnish your wages, all of that stuff to try to collect this money. And if you think about it, if this is a debt buyer who you have $1,000 debt, they paid $40 for the debt, they're adding in all of those fees for the attorney to you because they went to court and did all that stuff. Plus they're collecting a whole bunch of profit off of you, under that $1,000. So imagine if you would have just known what I'm telling you today, and then you showed up in the courtroom and you were able to call them out on that and then not have to worry about, receiving a lawsuit or them possibly coming after your funds, especially at a time like this where people's money is very important to hold on to. So with that being said, now, what should you be doing? What should you do to try to deal with these collection companies and debt buyers that may be popping up on your credit report? Well, as I started off in the video mentioning, most people want to go ahead and pay off the items on their credit report. And again, let me be clear, I'm not telling anybody not to pay their debts, but I am pointing out the facts that if you do pay those type of accounts and they're still on your credit report, they will hurt your credit score. And if you're doing it just out of feeling guilty and wanting to pay it, then, still keep in mind the fact that if you have $1,000 debt, most of those places probably paid $40 for that debt, and the creditor that you owed accepted that money and wrote it off, so they are actually good and they're not even worried about it anymore. But this debt buyer wants to make a big profit off of you. So if you do want to try to go the route of settling or paying off your collections, the most important thing to do is to make sure that they are going to be willing to delete this account off your credit report. Now, why is that important? Because your credit score calculates the information on a credit report. So if there is no negative information on a report, then there is no negative information to calculate, which means it will not lower your score. So if you pay it and they will delete it, it will help your credit score. But if you pay it and they don't delete it and it sits there, it will hurt your credit score. Now, that's one first option that you can do, but I can tell you now that 9 out of 10 collection companies will not do pay for deletion. So if you try that, you can always call to see, but if you try that, you may not see success with the majority of them, but there are some out there that will. Now, other than that, the only other things that you can really do is a lot of times these companies don't have the proper paperwork on the original debt that you owe. So you can go through a process of debt validation by sending disputes, and I would recommend you do it by mail and not online. And then that way you can try to see and validate and verify that they have all of the information to prove what they're supposed to have on file and to prove that they are following the laws that are out there. Laws that apply to these debt buyers and collection agencies is going to be the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and as far as anything on your credit report, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. There are several different reasons you can research in those laws that can help you find reasons that you can dispute. Now, if you want to do disputing on your own, I do have a course to help people figuring out the best way to try to send disputes and put together your letters, because it's more than just about the template letters. It's also about what you put into the letter. So basically, if you need some information on that, I do have some helpful tools down in the description as well. Now, I do hope this information was useful and helpful to you in trying to deal with your collection account situation. And basically, also don't forget, if you want somebody to help you with your collection situation, I do have that sale going on. I have about 18 spots left, so make sure that you are signing up as soon as you can, because you want to lock in your spot if you do need that type of help. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you got value from this video, and make sure that you share this video with other people that you know may need this information.